Hello, welcome to your business studies class once again. Today we will be looking at the topic occupation. Occupation. And by the end of the lesson, you should be able to define occupation, we'll identify the divisions of occupation, we'll explain the different divisions of occupation, give examples of occupation under each division. Then we'll list the factors that affect occupation. Lastly, we'll differentiate between the direct and the indirect services. What is occupation? How do we define occupation? An occupation can be defined as a legitimate job that a person does for a living. It's a legitimate job. A legitimate job is a job that is a legal job, a job that is backed up by law. It's a legitimate job that a person engages in as a means of livelihood. What somebody does for a living is referred to as an occupation. Why do I have legitimate here? There are some illegitimate jobs that people can do for a living. For example, we have stealing, people that are into fraud and all of that. All these are illegitimate jobs. So we don't really class, though they are occupations, but we won't bring them in here. So we say an occupation is a legitimate job a person does for a living. We can also define it as a means of livelihood of a person. As human beings, we have wants and needs. Just like economics will say that human wants are insatiable. So how do we satisfy our wants and needs? It is for us to engage in an occupation. If you don't want to go into stealing or into begging, you just have to find yourself being engaged in a particular job. What are the divisions of occupation? There are 5 major groups or categories or divisions of occupation. We have 5 divisions of occupation, and we are going to take them one after the other, explain them, and give examples of occupation under each division. The first division of occupation is the extractive occupation. We have the extractive occupation. We have the second division, which is the manufacturing occupation. We have the constructive occupation. We have the commercial occupation. And we have the service occupation. These are what we call the 5 broad categories of occupation: extractive occupation, manufacturing occupation, constructive occupation, commercial occupation, and the service occupation. Now, these 5 divisions can still be reclassified into 3. That means extractive, manufacturing, and constructive can be recategorized as industrial occupation. So we can still regroup occupation into 3, namely the industrial occupation, commercial occupation, and service occupation. So under the industrial occupation, we have the extractive, manufacturing, and the constructive occupation. Now let's take them one after the other. The first category of occupation, or the first division, is the extractive occupation. The extractive occupation involves the obtaining of raw materials and natural resources from either the soil or the sea. The people involved in the extractive occupation are people that obtain raw materials, minerals, natural resources, things created by God from either the soil, that's the land, or from water. This extractive occupation, we can also call it extractive industry. Remember we said it's one of the divisions of the industrial occupation. So the extractive industry, they are majorly people who dig out raw materials, who dig out natural resources. These are things created by God from either land or from the sea. We can also refer to them as people that practice the primary stage of production. There are people involved in the primary stage of production. Remember, the first stage of production is extractive, which is the primary stage, to get raw materials from the ground, which will now be processed into other things. So people that are involved in obtaining these raw materials are classified as the extractive industry, or they are involved in extractive occupation. Examples of people are the farmers, the fishermen, the hunters, the miners, the oil drillers. They are all under extractive occupation. Farmers plant and bring out food from the ground. They bring out food. This food too, they are raw materials, because some of them are still processed into other things. Some of them are still used for the production of other items. You have the fishermen. They go into water to bring out fishes and other water living organisms. They bring them out for production or for any other thing. These materials too, they can serve as raw materials for other products. We have the fishermen, we have the hunters. The hunters go into the bushes to hunt for animals. Animals are still natural resources too. These animals are still used for the production of other things, can be used as meat, can be used, their skins can be used to produce shoes, clothes, and bags, and some other things. Animals like cow, they use their milk to still produce other things. So hunters too are under the extractive stage, because they deal with natural resources. Animals and natural resources they are still under natural resources. We have the miners. These are people that dig the ground and mine things out. They mine things like gold, precious stones, diamonds. They are miners. They dig out the ground, and these materials they dig from the ground are processed into other things. We have the oil drillers, people that drill out oil. In Nigeria, one of our major export commodity is the crude oil. So people that are involved in bringing out this crude oil from either water or land, they are still under this extractive occupation stage. The next stage of occupation, this next division, is the manufacturing occupation. The manufacturing occupation involves the process of turning raw materials into finished products. These are people that are involved in turning the raw materials gotten from the extractive stage into finished goods, either with the use of their hand or machines. There are people that are into production of food, production of clothes, production of jewelry, bags, books, electronics, and chairs, tables, plastic chairs, plastic tables. All these people are under the manufacturing production. They are the people that use raw materials to produce finished products. The manufacturing industries, they are the ones that make goods available for use in our homes, in our offices, in schools, in our business places. All the things we use there to make work easier and better for us are produced by people under the manufacturing occupation. We can also call them the secondary producers. We call them the secondary producers. Remember I said the extractive occupation, we can also call them the primary producers. The manufacturing stage, the manufacturing occupation, we call them the secondary producers. They are mainly into processing raw materials into finished products. We have the third stage, which is the constructive occupation. The constructive occupation are the people involved in putting together different finished materials to build, to construct, to create something entirely different. These people, they make use of the different materials produced at the manufacturing stage. For example, if you look at a house, there are so many finished products put together to build a house. You have the block, You have the cement, you have tiles, you have paint, you have woods, you have different things produced by different producers, but assembled together to construct or build things like roads, bridges, railways, houses, industries, factories, and so on and so forth. And the people involved, or the people that find themselves under the constructive occupation, you have the engineers, you have the plumbers, you have the carpenters, you have bricklayers. These are people involved in building. You see them working with different manufactured products just to build or to construct. So we have the commercial occupation. So remember I said the extractive, manufacturing, and constructive occupation, they come together to form the industrial occupation. The next division of occupation is the commercial occupation. The commercial occupation are people involved in the exchange, marketing, and distribution of goods of products. These are people involved in the buying, selling, and distribution of goods. They are the ones that help the goods being manufactured at the manufacturing stage to reach the users of such products. And examples of people under this commercial occupation, you have the wholesalers, you have the retailers, you have the importers, you have the exporters, you have the petty traders. These are people that form the commercial occupation. There are people involved in the trade and aids to trade. Remember how we define commerce in our introductory class. That's Introduction to Business Studies class. We define commerce as the buying, selling, and distribution of goods and services. So anybody involved in the buying, selling, or the distribution of goods and services, they're the ones that form the commercial occupation. They also involve activities that form our aids to trade. What are the aids to trade? The 7 aids to trade. We have communication, we have warehousing, we have insurance, we have transportation, we have banking, we have advertising, we have tourism. So anybody who finds himself working under any of this is still involved in the commercial occupation. We have the wholesalers. Who are wholesalers? Wholesalers are people that buy goods in large quantity or in bulk from producers and sell in smaller quantities to the retailers. Who are retailers? Retailers are people that buy goods in smaller quantities from the wholesalers and sell in units or bits to the consumers. We have the importers too. Who are the importers? They are people that buy goods from one country into another country. And the exporters are people that sell out goods from their own country to other countries. We have petty traders, people that sell little items. All those people are involved in the commercial trade. Bankers, insurance brokers, people that work in advertising firms, people that work in tourist centers, people that work in communication firms. All of them are involved in commercial occupation. The next division, which is the last, is the service occupation. Remember, trade involves buying and selling of goods and services. We have dealt with the aspect of goods. Now let's move to services. Service occupation involves the rendering of a special type of help or work to customers or clients. Services are intangible products. That means you can't see them. They are either done with your hand or with your intellect. They are helps. They are helps or work rendered to customers or clients in which they pay for it. Service does not include produced goods. They are not visible items. That's why we call them intangible items, intangible products. Now we have 2 types of service. There are 2 types of service. We have the direct and the indirect services. The direct and the indirect services. Now let's explain the 2 types of service. the direct service. Direct services are those services that meet the consumers personally or directly, in which they pay for it. A direct service is a personal service, a service rendered to people directly, in which they pay for it. Who are the people involved in direct services? You have the private teachers, teachers who are into private lessons, teachers who teach in private schools. We have doctors that work in private establishments. We have chefs. We have nurses. We have the personal drivers. We have barbers. We have fashion designers. We have stewards. All these people render direct services to their clients, in which their clients pay for it. For example, you see a teacher teaching a student directly. There's a one-on-one attention. That's a direct service. You have a doctor treating a patient. That is a direct service. You have a chef cooking for maybe a family or for an organization. It's a direct service in which they pay for it. You see a nurse attending to sick people. Is a direct service. You have a personal driver. The personal driver is rendering a direct service to you because it's being paid for. You have barbers. You have fashion designers. You have hairdressers, stewards. All those people render direct services to us, and we pay directly for it. The other type of service is the indirect service. The indirect service. Indirect services are those services provided or rendered to the general public. This one is like the opposite of direct service. This one is rendered to the general public. They could also be those services we enjoy, but we do not pay for directly. That's why we call it indirect services. We enjoy them, but we don't pay for it directly like the direct service that you pay for. You enjoy it, but it's not paid for directly. And you are not the only one enjoying the service. It's for the benefit of the general public. And who are the people involved in rendering these indirect services? You have the police officers. The police officers are there to secure lives and properties in the environment. They don't work for a particular individual, and government pays them. We have the army officers. Their duty is to secure the nation. They are working for us, protecting us, but we are not the ones paying for it directly. We have the street cleaners or the street sweepers. We have civil servants. Civil servants are people that work in government establishments. People that work in government establishments are known as civil servants. They are working for us. They are working for the betterment of the nation or the state, but we are not the ones paying for it directly. So that's the difference between the direct service and the indirect service. I said the direct services are services rendered to people personally, in which they pay for it, while the indirect services are services rendered to the general public. So with this, you should be able to differentiate between people that render the direct service and people that render the indirect service. Now let's go to the factors that affect our choice of occupation. There are some people that like to venture into a particular occupation, but circumstances, there are some things that affect them that may or may not help them achieve this. So we call them factors that affect our choice of occupation. Number one, education, skill, and training. For you to be able to work well in an establishment, you must get the required education, acquire the skill and the training. And not everybody sometimes is able to do this. So it can limit you, it can affect your choice. If, for example, you're someone, you love being a medical doctor, you like the profession, but by the time you consider the length of period you need to acquire the skill, to get the training, it might discourage you into doing such. You might decide to now go for another occupation which will require less stress or reduced number or years of training. So the education, the skill, and the training might affect. Or you want to be a fashion designer, but you don't have the necessary skill and training. Of course, it will affect your choice. You won't be able to carry out the task. Another factor that can affect occupation is the natural endowment. The natural resources around us can affect. If, for example, you are a farmer, you love the farming profession, but just around it there are no good lands that you can use to do such, it will affect you. Or maybe you are a fisherman, you love fishing, but around you there is no water body that can encourage you, it will definitely affect you. Or you are someone that you want to go into a particular production, but the raw material you need is not available around you. It can also affect your choice of occupation. So the natural endowments around us can affect. Also climate and weather. There are some occupations that are affected by climate and weather, like farming, like fishing, like even the pilots. Sometimes they are affected by weather. Fishermen are not able to fish very well in dry season. So this can affect your choice of occupation by the time you consider the weather or some other climatic conditions. It can affect your choice. Also, the salaries and wages involved. There are some people that want to go into a particular occupation, but by the time they consider the salary being paid, they see it as being small, and it can bring discouragement to them. Today, everybody wants to become a medical doctor, a pilot, an engineer, and all of that, because they feel that the salary being paid there is on the high side. So this can also affect your choice of occupation by the time you consider the amount of money that will be paid after doing your job. It can either make you to go into the occupation or affect you negatively, the salaries and wages. Another important factor is your family background. You see some families, they will tell you, in our family, we are only medical doctors and lawyers. Any other profession is not allowed. This can affect you. Family background can affect your choice of occupation. Also, your religious background. Your religious background too can affect your choice of occupation. Some religions will say, okay, we are not allowed to do this. We are not allowed to wear this. We are not allowed to carry out this particular job. Your religion can also affect your choice of occupation. Another major factor that can affect your occupation is talent and skill. There are some people that have ventured into a particular occupation not because they even learned it, but because they are just talented. So all they need to do is to add a little skill to what they know, and it becomes a work or a job for them. So your talents and the skill you have can prompt you into going into a particular occupation. I know so many people that are into a particular job today that it just came as like a talent. Not that they really went for the training, but it's just an endowment, a natural endowment on them. So what they need to do is just to improve more on it to become better in it. So when you are good musicians today, they are into music because they feel they have good voices. So your talent can also inspire you into taking a particular occupation. And the last factor is your passion. Some people go for a particular job because they have passion for it. They have the desire, they have the passion for it. You see somebody who has studied medicine in school and is now becoming a musician or an actor or an actress. This can only happen because of what? The passion that they have for such occupation. So these are the various factors that can affect your choice of occupation: education, skill and training, natural endowment, that's the natural resources around us, the climate and the weather condition of a particular place, so the salaries and the wages attached to such an occupation, your family background, your religious background, your talent and your skill, and lastly, your passion. All this can inspire you into taking up an occupation. So with this, we come to the end of the lesson. Before we go, let's take a recap of what we have learned so far. We started by looking at the definition of occupation. And we defined occupation as a legitimate job a person does for a living. A job that you do to earn a living. And we identified 5 divisions, 5 broad divisions of occupation. We identified the extractive occupation. So these are people that are involved in bringing out raw materials from the ground, like farmers, like the hunters, the miners, the oil drillers. All those people are involved in the extractive occupation. We have the manufacturing occupation. These are people that are into changing raw materials into finished goods. These are people that work in factories, people that work in industries, people that are into production of food, clothes, equipment, machines, and anything usable by man. We have the 3rd division, which is a constructive occupation. So these are people involved in building. These are people that assemble different finished goods together to build or construct things like roads, houses, bridges, industries, and so on and so forth. And I said these 3 occupations, extractive, manufacturing, and constructive, can still be reclassified as the industrial occupation. Then we have the commercial occupation. These are people that are involved in trade and aids-to-trade activities. These are people that are involved in buying, selling, and distribution of goods and services. The traders, the wholesalers, the retailers, the importers, the exporters, the transporters, bankers, insurance brokers. All those people form the commercial occupation. And lastly, we looked at the service occupation. Service, we said, can be defined as the rendering of help to someone in which the person pays for it. And we're able to identify the 2 types of occupation and explain them. Said there are 2 types of occupation, the direct and the indirect occupation. And we differentiated them by saying that the direct occupation, the direct service is a type of service in which there is a personal contact between the service provider and the recipient of the service. Examples, we have the doctors, the nurses, the private teachers, the chefs, the private your personal drivers, and so on and so forth. Then we also looked at the indirect service. So these are people that render general service to the public. They render service to the general or the entire public. And we have the civil servants, are people that work in the government establishments. We have the policemen, we have the naval officers, we have the army officers, we have the street sweepers, and so on. All these are examples of occupations and their divisions. So I believe you have learned. Then lastly, we also looked at the factors that can affect your choice of occupation. Things that can either make you to go into a particular occupation or hinder you from going into a particular occupation. We identified education, skill and training, family background, your religious background can affect your choice, the wages and salaries involved. We also have the hazards or the risk attached to the job, and the natural endowment around. All these factors can affect our choice of occupation. So with this, we bring the class to a close. But before we go, let's take some questions from our ExamGuide app. From the app, the first question I have here says, the buying, selling, and distribution of goods is categorized under dash occupation. The buying, selling, and distribution of goods is categorized under dash occupation. We have the industrial occupation, commercial, constructive, extractive, and the manufacturing. So the answer here is the commercial occupation. The commercial occupation are the people involved in the buying, selling, and distribution of goods and services. Other types of occupation, you have the industrial. The industrial forms the extractive, manufacturing, and constructive. Then you have the commercial, which involves the exchange and the distribution of goods and services. Then you have the service occupation. The next question says, the following are factors that affect occupation except. The following are factors that affect occupation except skill and training, gift of nature, educational background, climate conditions, pleasing customers. We looked at various factors that affect occupation. Skill and training is a factor. Gift of nature, that's the natural endowment, is a factor. Educational background, that's acquiring the necessary education, is a factor. The weather and climate condition can affect. The odd one out is pleasing customers. Pleasing of customers is not a factor that affects your choice of occupation. Let's take another question. It says, who among the following renders direct service? Who among the following renders direct service? Remember, we said direct services are personal services rendered to people in which they pay for it. We have the soldier, civil servant, barber, sales representative, police officer. A soldier renders an indirect service. A civil servant renders an indirect service. A sales representative renders an indirect service. A police officer renders an indirect service. But a barber, which is option C, renders a direct service. So the answer is C, barber, direct service. Workers who obtain natural resources from the soil are engaged in dash occupation. Workers who obtain natural resources from the soil are engaged in which occupation? Is this service occupation, or commercial, or manufacturing, or extractive, or constructive? The type of occupation that engage in obtaining raw materials from the soil is the extractive occupation. The extractive occupation, they bring out raw materials or natural resources from the soil. They transfer it to the manufacturing occupation, who processes these raw materials into finished goods. From manufacturing, you move to constructive, who make use of different manufactured goods to build. The commercial service helps in selling and distributing the goods and services produced, while the service occupation, they render help to people. The last question. People that deal with conversion of raw materials into finished goods are involved in dash occupation. People that deal with conversion, that's changing, of raw materials into finished goods are involved in dash occupation. A, extractive, B, constructive, C, service occupation, D, commercial occupation, E, manufacturing occupation. The answer is option E, manufacturing occupation. To manufacture means to produce. So manufacturing, production, occupation, they deal with changing of raw materials gotten at the extractive stage into finished goods usable by man. So with this, we come to the end of the topic occupation. And I believe you have learned a whole lot of it from it, and you should be able to use the acquired knowledge here to answer any question from any examination. So thank you very much. See you in the next class. Bye for now.